The sky above Seoul burned red. Captain Dae-ho Kim stood on the roof of the Defense Command Center, watching massive alien ships block out the sun. They hung in the air like dark metal mountains, each one bigger than the entire city below. "Sir, we lost contact with Tokyo base," reported Lieutenant Hyojin Park through his radio. Her voice stayed calm, but Dae-ho could hear the fear underneath. "Sydney went dark 10 minutes ago. London stopped responding an hour ago." Dae-ho closed his eyes for a moment. 3 months ago, the first alien message had reached Earth. It was simple and cold. The dominion of 5 races had found Earth. Humanity would submit or die. Earth's leaders had tried to negotiate. They offered trade, knowledge, even limited access to Earth's resources. The aliens had not bothered to reply. Now they were here. How? Many ships? Dae-ho asked. "Our satellites counted over 300 before they went dark," Hyojin replied. "These things are huge, sir. Our biggest battleship could fit inside their cargo bay." Through his binoculars, Dae-ho watched the alien vessels. They moved without sound, without visible engines. Physics meant nothing to them. The largest ship had strange symbols carved into its black hull. According to the xenobiology reports, 5 different alien races worked together in this dominion. The Vorthak were the warriors. The Kelani built the technology. The Mexari handled strategy. The Gondorians managed resources. The Pelthans controlled information. Each race had conquered dozens of worlds before joining together. Now they ruled half the galaxy. "Sir, incoming transmission," Hyojin said. "It's directed at all human military frequencies." "Put it through." The voice that came through the radio sounded mechanical, translated by alien computers. "Humans of Earth, you have 1 hour to surrender all military forces. Lay down your weapons. Gather in your major cities. Resistance will result in the total destruction of your species." Dae-ho looked down at the city streets. Millions of people were trying to evacuate, but there was nowhere to go. The highways were jammed. The airports had been destroyed in the first attack. Most people just stood in the streets, looking up at the alien ships with blank faces. "What are your orders, sir?" Hyojin asked. Dae-ho thought about his daughter. She was 12 years old and staying with her grandmother in Busan. He thought about his wife, who had died in a car accident 2 years ago. He thought about every human who had ever lived and died on this small blue planet. "Tell all units to fall back to secondary positions," he said. "We fight." "Sir, with respect, we can't win this. Their shields didn't even notice our nuclear missiles. Our best weapons bounce off their hull like rain." "I know," Dae-ho said. "But maybe we can learn something. Maybe we can hurt them just a little. And maybe some of our people can escape." Hyojin was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Yes, sir. I'll relay the orders." The first alien ground troops appeared an hour later. They came down in small ships that moved like silver teardrops. The soldiers inside were tall and thin, wearing armor that seemed to flow like liquid metal. They carried weapons that fired beams of blue light. Anything the beams touched simply stopped existing. The human soldiers fought anyway. They used buildings for cover and hit the aliens with everything they had. Sometimes They even managed to damage the alien armor. But for every alien that fell, 100 humans died. Daiho watched the battle from his command post. His forces were being destroyed, but he kept giving orders. Keep fighting. Fall back slowly. Make them pay for every street. At sunset, an alien ship landed on the roof above him. Daiho grabbed his rifle and ran upstairs. 6 alien soldiers were waiting for him. They were tall with gray skin and 4 arms. Their eyes glowed red in the darkness. "Human commander," one of them said in perfect Korean. "You will surrender now." "No," Daiho said. He raised his rifle. The alien moved faster than his eyes could follow. The rifle was torn from his hands and crushed like paper. Then the alien grabbed him by the throat and lifted him off the ground. "Your resistance is meaningless," the alien said. "Your people will serve us or they will die. There is no third option." Daiho tried to speak, but the alien's grip was too tight. Finally, it dropped him to the ground. "You have courage," the alien said. "Courage is useful. You will come with us. You will watch your people learn to obey." 2 days later, Daiho sat in chains aboard an alien transport ship. Through the small window, he could see Earth getting smaller and smaller. Most of the continents were covered in smoke. The aliens had taken millions of humans as slaves. The rest were left to survive on a dying world. Around him sat other human prisoners. Soldiers, scientists, engineers, doctors. The aliens had taken the best and brightest, leaving the weak behind to starve. It was their way. They had done this to over 200 worlds. "Where are they taking us?" whispered Dr. Sujin Cho, a physicist from the Seoul National University. "To work," said Minho Lee, a sergeant from the Marines. His face was covered in cuts from the fighting. "They use conquered species as slaves. We'll probably end up in their mines or factories." "For how long?" Sujin asked. "Until we die," Minho said. Daiho listened to them talk, but he didn't speak. He was thinking about something the alien commander had said. "Your resistance is meaningless." Maybe that was true. Maybe humans were too weak and too primitive to fight back. But the alien had also said something else. Courage is useful. Daiho looked around at the other prisoners. These were some of the smartest and strongest people on Earth. The aliens thought they were taking slaves, but maybe they were making a mistake. Maybe they were giving humanity exactly what it needed, a chance to learn, a chance to grow stronger, a chance to understand their enemies. The transport ship jumped into hyperspace, carrying its human cargo toward an unknown fate. Behind them, Earth continued to burn, but Daiho made himself a promise. Someday, somehow, humanity would return. And when they did, the aliens would learn that humans were not as helpless as they looked. The war was over. Humanity had lost. But the real fight was just beginning. As the ship traveled deeper into alien space, Daiho began to study his captors. He watched how their technology worked. He listened to their conversations. He learned their language. Aliens thought he was broken, defeated. They were wrong. He was learning, and when humans learned, they became dangerous. The asteroid mine was a hell made of metal and stone. Sergeant Minho Lee swung his laser pick at the rock wall, feeling the vibration travel up his arms. Around him, dozens of aliens from different species worked in the darkness. The air was thin and tasted like rust. 6 months had passed since Earth fell. Minho had been sold to the Kalani Mining Corporation along with 50 other humans. The Kalani were short, gray creatures with 6 arms and no emotions. They treated all workers the same way, like machines that needed fuel to keep running. Human 779 called the Kalani overseer through his translator device. Your section must produce 50 tons of ore today. Yesterday you produced 48. Minho wiped sweat from his face. The rock is harder in this section. We need better tools. Tools cost money. Time costs money. Produce 50 tons or face punishment. The overseer walked away on his mechanical legs. Minho cursed under his breath in Korean. Around him, other workers continued digging. There were blue-skinned trillings who had been slaves for 30 years. There were the elephant-like Mordens who never spoke to anyone. There were small, furry creatures called pixies who seemed to fear everything. But the humans were different. Even after 6 months of brutal work, they kept adapting. They learned the alien languages faster than anyone expected. They figured out how to fix broken tools when the Kalani wouldn't replace them. Most importantly, they never stopped thinking of ways to make things better. Minho, called Jin-Woo Park, a former engineer from Busan. He was working in the next tunnel. Come here. I found something. Minho put down his pick and crawled through the narrow passage between the work areas. Jin-Woo was examining a crack in the rock wall. Look at this, Jin-Woo said. This whole section is unstable. One good explosion and the whole thing comes down. So? Minho asked. So yesterday I was talking to Krell. He pointed at one of the trillings. His species has been here longer than any other. He told me the Kalani have a safety protocol. If there's a major cave-in, they have to evacuate everyone to the emergency shelters while they assess the damage. Minho looked at the crack more carefully. How long would that take? Days, maybe weeks. And here's the interesting part. The emergency shelters are connected to the main communication array. They need to report accidents to the Dominion headquarters. Minho began to understand. You think we could access their communications? Maybe, but we'd need to cause the cave-in at the right time, when the right people are in the right places. That evening, Minho called a secret meeting in the human sleeping area. 12 humans gathered in a circle, speaking in low voices. They had learned to be careful. The Kalani monitored everything, but they didn't understand human facial expressions or body language yet. Here's what I'm thinking, Minho said. We've been working like good little slaves for 6 months. The overseers trust us not to cause trouble. But we've also been learning. We know more about this place than they think we do. Young Kim, a former teacher, spoke up. What are you suggesting? A controlled accident. We make it look like natural cave-in, but we time it perfectly. While everyone is evacuating, some of us get access to their communication systems. And then what? Asked Sang-min. Oh, a former police officer. Then we find out what happened to the other humans. We find out where they took our people. We start building a network. The humans looked at each other. They all knew the risks. If they were caught, the punishment would be terrible. The Kalani had shown them what happened to workers who caused trouble. But they also knew they couldn't spend the rest of their lives as slaves. "I'm in," said Jin Woo. "Me too," said Hei Young. One by one, they all agreed. The plan took 3 weeks to prepare. The humans worked normally during the day, but at night they studied the mine's layout. They learned the patrol schedules. They figured out how to create a controlled explosion using mining equipment. Most importantly, they talked to the other alien slaves. Minho discovered that most of the conquered species had simply given up. They accepted slavery as their fate. But humans were different. They still had hope. "Why do you keep fighting?" asked Krell the Trilling one day. "The Dominion always wins. They have won for thousands of years." "Because we're stupid," Minho said with a smile. "We don't know when to quit." But privately, Minho knew it was more than that. Humans had something the other species had lost, the ability to adapt and learn quickly. In 6 months, the humans had become the most efficient workers in the mine. They fixed problems the Kalani couldn't solve. They invented new techniques that improved production. The Kalani saw this as proof that humans made good slaves. Minho saw it as proof that humans could become something more. The day of the accident was chosen carefully. The mine supervisor was visiting from the corporate headquarters. Several important Kalani engineers were inspecting the new drilling equipment. Most of the security guards were busy with the inspection. At exactly 3 in the afternoon, Jin Woo triggered the explosion. The sound was enormous. Rock and dust filled the air. Emergency alarms blared throughout the facility. The Kalani workers panicked, running toward the evacuation tunnels. In the chaos, Minho and 3 other humans slipped away from the evacuation group. They followed a maintenance tunnel that led to the communication center, just as Jin Woo had predicted. The center was empty except for automated systems. Hei Young, who had learned some Kalani computer codes, managed to access the communication logs. What they found was both terrible and hopeful. Terrible because they learned the true scale of the Dominion. Over 300 species had been conquered. Billions of sentient beings lived as slaves across thousands of worlds, but hopeful because they found references to other human groups. Humans were scattered across the galaxy, but they were still alive. And according to the reports, humans were causing management difficulties on several worlds. "Look at this," Hei Young whispered, pointing at a report. "Humans on Vorthak Prime are exceeding work quotas by 200%. Humans on Pelthani stations are learning alien languages in weeks instead of years. Human servants on Gondorian worlds are preventing political assassinations by reading body language." Minho smiled grimly. "They think we're just being good slaves. They don't realize we're learning everything we can about them." They quickly copied all the information they could find: communication frequencies, shipping schedules, personnel records. Then they returned to the evacuation area before anyone noticed they were missing. The investigation into the cave-in took 2 weeks. The Kalani blamed natural geological instability. They never suspected sabotage. Human workers were praised for their quick response during the emergency. That night, Minho gathered the humans again. "We did it," he said quietly. "We know where our people are. We know how their communication systems work. And we know something else." He looked around at their faces. "We're not the only ones who refuse to give up. Humans across the galaxy are fighting back in their own ways. They're learning, adapting, growing stronger." "What do we do now?" asked Jinwoo. Minho thought about Captain Dae-ho Kim, who had chosen to fight even when defeat was certain. He thought about all the humans scattered across alien worlds, working as slaves but never truly surrendering. "Now we start building something the Dominion has never seen before," he said. "A resistance that they can't detect. A network of slaves who refuse to stay slaves." The humans began to smile. For the first time since Earth's fall, they felt something they had almost forgotten. Hope, Jae-min Yang crouched in the maintenance shaft, carefully connecting two alien communication devices. His hands shook slightly as he worked. One mistake could fry the circuits or worse, trigger an alarm that would bring Vorthak guards running. 2 years had passed since Earth's fall. Jamin had been sold to a shipping company that moved cargo between star systems. As a former communications engineer, he understood how information flowed through networks. But alien technology was different from anything humans had built. It had taken him 18 months to figure out how Dominion communications worked. The aliens used quantum entanglement to send messages instantly across the galaxy. Each ship, each station, each important facility was connected to the network. The system was incredibly secure, in theory, but the aliens had never encountered human creativity. "Got it," Jamin whispered to himself as the connection held. Through his makeshift interface, he could now tap into the Dominion's communication grid without them knowing. It was a tiny crack in their perfect system, but it was enough. He had already made contact with 7 other humans on different worlds. Now it was time to expand the network. The first message came from Min-ho Lee on the mining station in the Kalani system. The text appeared on Jae-min's hidden screen in simple Korean. "Package delivered. 47 recipients confirmed. Ready for next phase." Jae-min smiled. Min-ho had found 47 humans working in the mines and had taught them how to recognize coded messages. They couldn't send communications yet, but they could receive information and pass it along. The second message was from Soo-jin Cho on Vorthak Prime. "Learning environment excellent. Students eager. Request lesson plans." Soo-jin had been assigned as a household servant to a high-ranking Vorthak military family. Her photographic memory allowed her to memorize everything she saw and heard. More importantly, she had access to other human servants in the capital city. They were building an intelligence network right under the aliens' noses. The third message made Jae-min's heart race. "Teacher found. Location confirmed. Health good. Requests contact." Teacher was there. Code name for Captain Dae-ho Kim. Someone had found him. After 2 years of searching, they finally knew where the Earth Defense Force commander was being held. Over the next 6 months, the network grew. Each human who joined found ways to contact other humans. They used maintenance workers who traveled between facilities. They used cargo ships that visited multiple worlds. They used the fact that aliens saw human slaves as invisible and unimportant. By the end of the year, Jamin was coordinating communication between humans on 37 different worlds. But the network was more than just communication. It was education. Bora Kim worked as a data analyst for the Pelthani government. Her job was to organize information about trade routes and resource allocation. But Bora was learning much more than her employers realized. She was mapping the entire Dominion economy. She understood which worlds produced food, which systems manufactured weapons, which trade routes were critical for supply lines. She shared this information through the network. Soon, humans across the galaxy understood how their enemy's civilization worked. Taewon Park was training as a security guard on a Gondorian military base. The Gondorians thought humans made good guards because they were strong and followed orders well. They didn't realize that Taewon was memorizing every detail of their military procedures: guard rotations, weapon storage, communication protocols, emergency procedures. All of it went into the network database. Meanwhile, So Young Lee was working in a Mexari research facility. The Mexari were the Dominion's strategic planners. They studied conquered species and figured out how to use them most efficiently. So Young's job was to clean their computers and maintain their databases. What the Mexari didn't know was that So Young had figured out how to copy their files. Through the network, humans learned about Dominion expansion plans, fleet movements, and resource allocations. They were seeing the big picture that their captors thought was secret. The breakthrough came when Jamin received a message that changed everything. It was from a human called Moonsik Choi, working in a Kalani Technology Center. Found the map. Uploading now. The map showed something incredible. The Dominion wasn't as strong as they pretended to be. They controlled hundreds of worlds, but they were spread thin. Their military was powerful but small. They relied on fear and superior technology to maintain control. More importantly, the map showed something else. There were rebel groups on dozens of worlds. Most were small and weak, but they existed. The Dominion had enemies, and some of those enemies might be willing to work with humans. Jamin shared this information with the network leaders. The response was immediate and unanimous. It was time to stop just learning and start acting. But they had to be careful. The aliens still saw humans as harmless slaves. If they revealed themselves too early, they would be crushed before they could build real strength, so they developed a new strategy. Instead of hiding completely, they would position themselves to become indispensable to their captors. The plan was brilliant in its simplicity. Humans would volunteer for important jobs. They would solve problems that their alien masters couldn't solve. They would make themselves so useful that the aliens couldn't imagine functioning without them. On the mining stations, humans began suggesting efficiency improvements that increased production. The Kalani were impressed and gave humans more responsibility. On military bases, human guards proved to be incredibly reliable and observant. The Gondorians began assigning humans to more sensitive positions. In research facilities, human assistants showed remarkable ability to understand complex problems. The Mexari started including humans in planning sessions. In government offices, human servants demonstrated amazing skill at managing information and preventing problems. The Pelthani began relying on human advice for important decisions. On military ships, human crew members proved to be natural problem solvers who could fix any malfunction. The Vorthak started putting humans in charge of entire engineering departments. Each promotion, each new responsibility, each sign of trust brought humans closer to the heart of Dominion power. And through the network, they shared everything they learned. By the third year after Earth's fall, humans held thousands of important positions throughout Dominion space. They maintained the machines that kept the economy running. They guarded the facilities that stored the weapons. They processed the information that guided political decisions. The aliens thought they had found the perfect slave species. Humans were intelligent enough to handle complex tasks, but appeared to lack the will to rebel. They worked hard and followed orders. They seemed grateful for the opportunity to serve their betters. The truth was very different. Humans were positioning themselves for something the Dominion had never experienced before. A coordinated uprising by slaves who understood the system better than their masters did. Jamin looked at his communication screen, watching messages flow between human agents across the galaxy. Supply routes, troop movements, political tensions, technical specifications, information that would have taken the aliens years to gather was flowing through the human network in real time. Soon, they would have everything they needed. The locations of every important facility, the weaknesses of every defensive system, the personal habits of every political leader, the exact timing of every supply shipment and troop rotation. But most importantly, they had something the aliens could never understand: the absolute determination to be free. The network was complete. The positioning was finished. The information was gathered. Now they just needed the right moment to reveal what they had become. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were not good slaves. They were excellent rebels. The explosion lit up the darkness of space like a new star. Captain Daeho Kim watched through his scope as the Dominion supply depot slowly broke apart, spilling precious metals and equipment into the void. Around him, his team of 12 humans prepared to disappear back into the asteroid field before enemy patrols arrived. 3 years had passed since Earth fell. 3 years since Daeho had been captured and supposedly broken. The aliens thought he was dead, killed trying to escape from a prison transport. They were wrong. He had escaped, but he had also learned something valuable: how to become invisible in their empire. Clean extraction, reported Taewon Park through the communication device. No casualties on our side. Target destroyed completely. Daeho nodded. This was their 15th successful operation in 6 months. Small strikes against supply lines, communication relays, and isolated facilities. Nothing big enough to trigger massive retaliation, but enough to cause problems. The Ghost Protocol, as they called it, was working perfectly. So Young, what's our next target? Daeho asked. So Young Lee consulted her datapad. She had become their intelligence expert, using her skills as a former computer specialist to hack into Dominion networks. The Vorthak weapons shipment to Sector C. 7. 3 transport ships, light escort, carrying enough plasma rifles to arm a small army. When and where? Tomorrow at 1400 hours, passing through the Zerion system. But there's a problem. Increased patrol activity in that area. They're starting to notice our work. Dayho had expected this. The Dominion military was slow to adapt, but they weren't stupid. 15 successful raids in 6 months was bound to get their attention. What kind of patrol activity? Heavy cruisers doing random sweeps. They're trying to catch us in the act. Daewon Park spoke up. Maybe it's time to change tactics. Instead of hitting their supplies, we could target their communication networks, cause confusion instead of just damage. Dayho considered this. His team had grown skilled at more than just fighting. They had learned to think like their enemies, to understand how the Dominion operated. Each raid taught them something new about alien technology and tactics. The team had started with just 5 humans who had escaped from different prison facilities. Over 3 years, they had rescued 7 more humans and recruited them into their ghost unit. Each member brought different skills: engineering, computers, weapons, medicine, electronics, but their greatest advantage wasn't their skills. It was their invisibility. The Dominion tracked all ship movements through their territory. They monitored all communications. They kept detailed records of every citizen and slave, but they had never learned to track humans who didn't want to be found. Dayho's team used stolen ships with forged identification codes. They hid in asteroid fields and dead systems that the aliens considered worthless. They moved only when patrol schedules allowed. They struck fast and disappeared before anyone could respond. Most importantly, they had learned to think differently than their enemies expected. "So Young, show me the patrol data again," Dayho said. The intelligence expert brought up a 3-dimensional map of local space. Red dots showed Dominion patrol routes. Blue lines showed shipping lanes. Yellow markers indicated their previous targets. "Look at this pattern," Dayho said, pointing at the patrol routes. "They're focusing on areas where we've already struck. They think we're going to hit the same types of targets in the same regions." "So we change regions?" asked Daewon. "No, we change the game completely." Dayho had been thinking about this for weeks. The Ghost Protocol was successful, but it was also limited. They could damage supply lines and destroy isolated facilities, but they couldn't really hurt the Dominion. They were like insects stinging a giant. Annoying, but not dangerous. It was time to become dangerous. "What if instead of avoiding their patrols, we hunt them?" Dayho asked. The team looked at him in surprise. "Hunt Dominion warships?" So Young asked. "Sir, we have 1 modified cargo ship and some stolen weapons. They have battle cruisers." "They have battle cruisers that are designed to fight other battle cruisers," Dayho corrected. "Ships that follow predictable patterns and use standard tactics. They've never fought humans who refuse to follow the rules. Over the next week, they planned something unprecedented. Instead of hiding from Dominion patrols, they would ambush one. The target was a Vorthak patrol ship called the Decimator. It was a medium-sized cruiser with heavy weapons and strong shields. Under normal circumstances, it could destroy their cargo ship in seconds. But Dayho wasn't planning normal circumstances. The trap was set in the Corvash system, near a gas giant with 16 moons. The Decimator followed a regular patrol route that brought it through this system every 48 hours. So Young had hacked their navigation computers and confirmed the schedule. At the appointed time, the Decimator arrived exactly as predicted. Its crew was relaxed, expecting another routine patrol through empty space. They found a human cargo ship apparently stranded near the fourth moon, sending distress signals about engine failure. The Vorthak captain did exactly what Day-Ho expected. He approached the cargo ship to investigate. Escaped slaves were valuable, and capturing them would earn him recognition from his superiors. As the Decimator moved closer, it passed between the fourth and fifth moons. Hidden on both moons were human-built devices that So Young had constructed from stolen mining equipment. At exactly the right moment, the devices activated. Instead of explosions, they generated massive electromagnetic pulses. The energy bursts were precisely tuned to overload Vorthak shield generators and scramble their computer systems. For exactly 97 seconds, the Decimator was helpless. That was enough time for Day-Ho's ship to accelerate to ramming speed and punch through the cruiser's unprotected hull. But instead of destroying the ship, they boarded it. The human team moved through the Decimator like shadows. They knew the ship's layout from stolen technical manuals. They knew where the crew would be stationed during a patrol. They knew which systems to disable first. In 12 minutes, they had captured the entire ship. The Vorthak crew was locked in their own cargo bay. The ship's communication system was destroyed. The navigation computers were wiped clean. To anyone watching, the Decimator had simply vanished. But Day-Ho wasn't finished. Using the Decimator's own weapons, they destroyed 2 more patrol ships over the next week. The attacks appeared to come from nowhere. Dominion vessels were being destroyed by other Dominion vessels, with no explanation. The psychological effect was exactly what Day-Ho had hoped for. Dominion commanders began to suspect treachery within their own ranks. They started changing codes and rotating personnel. They wasted time and resources investigating each other instead of hunting humans. Better yet, the captured Decimator gave them access to real military-grade equipment. Weapons that could punch through alien armor, shields that could deflect energy beams, communication systems that could monitor Dominion military frequencies. For the first time since Earth's fall, humans had the tools to fight back effectively. "Sir," Taiwan reported after their third successful ship capture, "we're getting messages from the network. Other human groups are reporting unusual patrol behavior in their sectors. The aliens are getting paranoid." Day-Ho smiled grimly. Perfect. Paranoid enemies made mistakes. And when the Dominion made mistakes, humans would be ready to take advantage. "What's our next move?" So Young asked. Day-Ho looked at the star charts showing Dominion territory. Hundreds of systems, thousands of worlds, millions of ships and facilities. The Empire was huge and powerful, but it was also predictable. It followed patterns. It relied on routine. Humans were about to teach them that routine was dangerous when your enemies refused to be predictable. "We expand," Day-Ho said. "Find more escaped humans, capture more ships, hit more targets, and most importantly, we start coordinating with the network." The Ghost Protocol had proven that humans could hurt the Dominion. Now it was time to prove they could do much more than that. It was time to show the galaxy that the ghosts were just the beginning. Yunji Lim stood perfectly still in the corner of the Dominion Senate chamber, holding a translation device and pretending to be invisible. For 4 years, she had served as a human translator for diplomatic meetings. The senators saw her as a useful tool, nothing more. Today, that invisibility was about to save millions of lives. The human problem requires a final solution, declared Senator Vextar of the Vorthak delegation. His voice echoed through the massive chamber where representatives of 5 alien races discussed the future of their empire. Yunji kept her face blank, but her heart was racing. She activated the hidden recording device implanted behind her ear, a piece of human technology so small that alien scanners couldn't detect it. "Define final solution," said Senator Mordeth of the Pelthani. "Complete." "Extermination," Vextar replied. "The humans have become too troublesome. Our security reports indicate coordinated resistance activities across multiple sectors. They are no longer useful as slaves." Senator Krivak of the Kalani spoke up. "The humans are our most productive workers. Mining output has increased 30% since we acquired them. And military incidents have increased 200%, Vextar countered. "Ghost attacks on our patrol ships, sabotage of supply lines, intelligence leaks that compromise our operations. The humans are more dangerous than useful." Yunji continued recording as the debate continued. The aliens were finally realizing that humanity was not the broken, defeated species they had believed. But their solution was typically simple and brutal. Kill them all. "When would this extermination begin?" asked Senator Yelmoth of the Gondorians. "Immediately after we complete the Andromedan operation," Vextar said. "Our fleets are already positioned for the next harvest. Once we secure the Andromedan galaxy, we will have enough new slaves to replace the humans." Yunji felt sick. The Andromedan galaxy contained billions of intelligent beings who had no idea what was coming. And after the aliens finished destroying that entire galaxy, they would turn their attention to exterminating every human in existence. "The motion is proposed," announced the Senate Speaker. "All in favor of Resolution 847X, complete elimination of human species upon completion of Andromedan harvest?" 4 hands went up. Only the Kalani senator abstained. Motion carried. Implementation begins in 60 standard days. The session ended and the senators filed out, discussing logistics and scheduling. Yunji remained motionless until the chamber was empty. Then she walked calmly to the nearest service corridor and ran. She had to get this information to the network immediately. Meanwhile, halfway across the galaxy, Su-Jin Cho was attending a military briefing on Vorthak Prime. As the personal servant to General Kothvar, she was required to bring refreshments and maintain his equipment during important meetings. Phase 1 of the Andromedan operation launches in 45 days, the general announced to his staff. "Our surveys indicate 17 habitable worlds with primitive but intelligent species. Total population estimated at 8 billion individuals." Su-Jin poured drinks and listened as the Vorthak military planned the systematic conquest of an entire galaxy. The operation would use 1,500 ships and 500,000 soldiers. It would be the largest military action in Dominion history. "What about the human situation?" asked Colonel Ventar. "Senate Resolution 847X addresses that issue," the general replied. "Upon our return from Andromeda, all human slaves will be terminated. We cannot afford further security risks." Sujin's hand trembled slightly as she poured the general's drink. The aliens had finally decided that humans were too dangerous to keep alive. "Sir," she said quietly, "will you need anything else?" "No. Return to your duties." Sujin bowed and left the room. She had memorized every detail of the invasion plan: ship assignments, attack schedules, target worlds, supply requirements. Through the network, this information would reach human agents throughout the galaxy. But first, she had to warn them about the extermination order. The message reached Jae-min, Yang's communication hub, within hours. His hidden transmitter received the coded signal from both Yoonji and Sujin simultaneously. The news was devastating, but not unexpected. Humans had always known this day would come. The question was whether they were ready. Jae-min activated the network's emergency protocol. Within minutes, encoded messages were flowing to human agents on hundreds of worlds. The signals were disguised as routine maintenance communications, invisible to Dominion monitors. The message was simple. "The storm comes. 60 days. Prepare for revelation." On the mining station in the Kelani system, Min-Ho Lee received the message while working his shift. He showed no emotion, but inside he felt a mixture of fear and excitement. After 4 years of secret preparation, it was finally time. That night, he gathered the human workers in their sleeping area. "Brothers and sisters," he said quietly, "the time for hiding is over. In 60 days, they plan to kill every human in the galaxy. But they've made a mistake." The humans looked at him with tired but determined faces. "They think we're still the broken slaves they captured 4 years ago. They think we're scattered and helpless. They're wrong." Min-Ho activated a small communication device. "We are connected. We are organized. We are positioned throughout their entire empire. And we are ready." Similar meetings were taking place on worlds across the galaxy. Human servants, guards, technicians, and workers were receiving their final instructions. On Vorthak Prime, Taiwan, Park gathered the human security personnel for their last briefing as loyal guards. "For 4 years, we've protected their facilities and learned their secrets," he said. "Tomorrow, we show them what we've really been doing." On the Pelthani research stations, So-Young Lee met with human technicians who maintained the alien computer systems. "We know every password, every access code, every security protocol," she said. "When the moment comes, their own technology will turn against them." On the Gondorian trading worlds, Bo-Ra Kim addressed human clerks and administrators who managed supply chains and resource allocation. "We control their economy," she said. "We know where everything is stored, how everything moves, when everything arrives. Without us, their empire stops functioning." But the most important message went to Dae-Ho Kim, still operating in deep space with his ghost fleet. Jamin's transmission reached him while he was planning another raid. "Ghost Leader," the message said, "the final phase begins. 60 days to revelation. Are you ready to come home?" Deho looked at his team of hardened fighters. They had captured 12 Dominion warships and trained nearly 200 escaped humans in combat operations. They were no longer ghosts. They were the core of a fleet. "Send reply," he told his communications officer. "We're ready. Give us the targets." The response came back within hours. It was a list of 17 critical facilities that needed to be neutralized simultaneously. Command centers, communication hubs, weapons depots, fleet bases, the heart of Dominion military power. Deho studied the list and smiled grimly. The network had been gathering intelligence for 4 years. They knew exactly where to strike for maximum effect, but first, they had to complete one more mission, the most important mission of all. Hyunwoo Choi was a former physicist who had been working in a Dominion research facility for 3 years. His official job was to maintain laboratory equipment. His real job was to map the location of the Nexus, the quantum communication hub that coordinated the entire Dominion military. Finding the Nexus had taken years of careful investigation. The aliens kept its location secret, known only to the highest levels of government and military command. But humans had patience, and they had positioned themselves everywhere. The message from Hyunwoo arrived just as the network was finalizing its plans. Nexus located. Coordinates confirmed. Access possible. Jamin stared at the message in amazement. They had found it. The single point of failure that could cripple the entire Dominion war machine. He sent the coordinates to Deho. Immediately. "This is our moment," he transmitted. "Everything we've worked for leads to this." Across the galaxy, humans prepared for the revelation. After 4 years of pretending to be broken slaves, they were about to show their true nature. The Dominion thought they were planning to exterminate a defeated species. They were actually about to face the most dangerous enemy they had ever encountered. Humans who had learned everything about their captors positioned themselves throughout their empire and prepared for this exact moment. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when humans stopped hiding. In 60 days, the storm would begin, and when it ended, everything would be different. The moment had arrived. On mining stations, military bases, research facilities, and government centers across the galaxy, humans stopped pretending. Min-Ho Lee stood in the center of the Kalani mining station's main hub, no longer wearing the gray uniform of a slave. Instead, he wore makeshift armor constructed from mining equipment and carried a weapon taken from the security office. Around him, 47 other humans had shed their disguises and revealed their true purpose. "Attention all workers," Min-Ho broadcast over the facility's communication system. "This is no longer a slave colony. This is Free Station Alpha, the first liberated world in the new galaxy." The response was immediate chaos. Kalani overseers panicked and ran for the emergency exits. Alien workers from other species stood frozen, not understanding what was happening. Some had been slaves for so long they couldn't imagine freedom, but the humans knew exactly what they were doing. Jae-woo, secure the communication array, Minho ordered. Hey Young, take the power generators. Sang-min, lock down the shuttle. Bays. Nobody leaves until we're ready. For 4 years, these humans had memorized every detail of the facility. They knew which corridors led where, which systems controlled what, which aliens were guards and which were just workers. The takeover was swift and efficient. Within 30 minutes, the humans controlled the entire station. But the real surprise came when Minho opened communication channels to the rest of the galaxy. This is Free Station Alpha calling all human. Units, he broadcast. Report your status. The response was overwhelming. Voices began coming in from across Dominion space, all speaking in Korean and all delivering the same message. Objective secured. On Vorthak Prime, Taewon Park had captured the planet's main military academy. Free Base Beta reporting. 43 Vorthak officers captured. Weapons depot secured. No casualties on our side. On Pelthani Station 7, So-Young Lee had taken control of the research facility's computer network. Freebase Gamma reporting, all data cores secured, alien staff contained. We have access to their complete technical database. On Gondorian Trade World 5, Bo-Ra Kim had locked down the entire planetary supply hub. Freebase Delta reporting, food distribution secured, shipping records copied. The planet's economy is now under human control. The reports kept coming. Dozens of facilities, hundreds of installations, thousands of critical systems across the WE. Dominion had fallen to human control in a single coordinated strike, but the biggest surprise was yet to come. "This is Ghost Leader," came a familiar voice over the communication channel. "We are inbound to the Nexus, beginning final approach." Captain Dae-ho Kim guided his captured Dominion battleship toward the most heavily defended installation in the galaxy. The Nexus was a massive space station hidden in an asteroid field, protected by dozens of patrol ships and automated defense platforms. Under normal circumstances, approaching the Nexus without proper authorization would result in immediate destruction. But these weren't normal circumstances. "Nexus Control, this is Battleship Decimator requesting emergency docking," Dae-ho transmitted using perfect Vorthak military protocols. "We have captured human terrorists and require immediate debriefing." The response came quickly. "Decimator, you are cleared for Docking Base 7. Prepare prisoners for transfer." Dae-ho smiled grimly. Even now, the aliens couldn't imagine that humans might be clever enough to turn their own procedures against them. The Decimator docked without incident. Security teams were waiting to process the captured terrorists. Instead, they found themselves facing 200 trained human fighters equipped with alien weapons and armor. The battle for the Nexus lasted exactly 47 minutes. When it ended, humans controlled the communication hub that coordinated the entire Dominion military. Every order, every supply request, every troop movement in the galaxy now flowed through human hands. "All units, this is Ghost Leader," Dae-ho announced. "The Nexus is secured. Phase 2 begins now." Across the galaxy, humans revealed the true Scope of their preparation. On military bases, human guards turned their weapons on their former masters. They knew every security protocol, every guard rotation, every defensive weakness. Bases that should have taken days to capture fell in hours. On government worlds, human servants revealed themselves as intelligence agents. They had memorized state secrets, copied classified documents, and mapped political networks. Within minutes, they had arrested or contained every important official. On research stations, human technicians used their knowledge of alien technology to turn defensive systems against their creators. Automated turrets fired on alien personnel while protective shields locked down human areas. On trading worlds, human clerks and administrators shut down the economic systems they had been managing. Supply chains ground to a halt. Banking networks crashed. Transportation hubs closed. But the most shocking revelation came from the humans themselves. Galaxy-wide broadcast initiating, announced Jae-Min Yang from his hidden communication center. All frequencies, all languages, maximum power. What followed was a message that every intelligent being in the galaxy heard simultaneously. People of the galaxy, this is the human resistance speaking. For 4 years, you have believed that humanity was defeated and enslaved. You were wrong. We were never defeated. We were learning. The broadcast continued as images flowed across countless screens. Humans removing slave collars and revealing hidden weapons. Human servants walking out of government buildings carrying classified files. Human workers standing triumphant in captured military facilities. We have spent 4 years positioning ourselves throughout the Dominion Empire. We know your strengths and your weaknesses. We understand your technology and your tactics. We have memorized your secrets and copied your databases. On worlds across the galaxy, aliens stared in shock at their view screens. The primitive slaves they had captured from a destroyed world had somehow infiltrated every level of their civilization. But we are not here for revenge, the broadcast continued. We are here for justice. The Dominion has enslaved hundreds of species and destroyed thousands of worlds. Today that ends. The message shifted to show images from Dominion archives, the systematic conquest and enslavement of species after species over thousands of years. The humans had found evidence of genocide on a galactic scale. To all enslaved peoples, you are free. To all oppressed worlds, you are liberated. To all conquered species, the Dominion no longer controls your destiny. But the broadcast wasn't finished. To the leaders of the 5 races, we offer you a choice. Surrender now and confine yourselves to your homeworlds, and you will be allowed to live in peace. Continue your campaigns of conquest and slavery, and you will face the full strength of a united galaxy. The transmission ended with a simple statement. You have 72 hours to decide. The galaxy fell silent. On thousands of worlds, enslaved. Species looked up at their alien overseers with new hope in their eyes. Many had forgotten what freedom felt like. Others had never known it at all. But suddenly, impossibly, it was being offered to them. On the Dominion Council worlds, emergency sessions convened as alien leaders tried to comprehend what had happened. In a single day, they had lost control of their entire empire. Their slaves had revealed themselves as master strategists. Their servants had become their captors. The Vorthak High Command gathered in their war room, staring at tactical displays that showed human forces controlling critical installations across their territory. "How is this possible?" demanded Supreme Commander Kraveth. "They were defeated, broken. We scattered them across the galaxy specifically to prevent coordination." "Apparently," said Intelligence Director Morvan, "we underestimated their ability to adapt and learn. They used our own communication systems to coordinate this uprising. And they've been planning this for 4 years," added General Kothvar. "Every human we trusted, every position we gave them, every secret they learned. It was all preparation for this moment." The Pelthani Senate was in chaos. Senators who had relied on human staff for years were discovering that their most trusted advisors had been intelligence agents all along. "They know everything," reported Security Chief Veltara. "Our military codes, our political plans, our economic systems, our scientific research. There are no secrets left." Similar scenes played out on every Dominion world. The empire that had ruled through fear and superior technology had been defeated by patience, intelligence, and careful planning. But the humans weren't done revealing their capabilities. Deep in space, Dae-ho Kim stood on the bridge of the Nexus Command Center, watching as his fleet took positions around the station. But these weren't just the 12 ships he had captured over the years. Hidden in asteroid fields and dead systems across the galaxy, humans had been building. Using stolen technology and salvaged materials, they had constructed dozens of warships, designed specifically to fight Dominion forces. The fleet that emerged from hiding was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships built with alien technology but guided by human tactics, fast, deadly, and completely unpredictable. "Fleet status report," Dae-ho ordered. 47 ships operational and ready," reported his tactical officer. "All units report green status across all systems." The Dominion's response came exactly 72 hours later, delivered by Supreme Commander Kraveth of the Vorthak High Command. "Humans of the Rebellion," his message began, "your demands are rejected. You are slaves who have forgotten your place. We will remind you." Admiral Dae-ho Kim listened to the transmission from the bridge of his flagship, the Liberation. Around him, the command crew, all humans who had spent years learning Dominion military procedures, prepared for what they knew would come next. "Dominion does not negotiate with slaves," Kraveth continued. "We do not bow to inferior species. You will surrender immediately or face total annihilation." The message ended with a simple threat. "You have started a war you cannot win." Dae-ho looked at his tactical display. It showed the positions of human forces throughout the galaxy. Thousands of captured installations, dozens of liberated worlds, and 47 warships hidden in strategic locations. It also showed the Dominion's response. Over 1,500 ships were moving toward human positions. The largest military fleet in galactic history was being assembled to crush the human rebellion. "Admiral," reported his communications officer, "we're receiving messages from all human units. They're requesting orders." Dae-ho nodded. the moment he had been preparing for since Earth's fall had finally arrived. The Dominion wanted a war. They would get one, but it wouldn't be the war they expected. "Send this message to all human forces," Deho ordered. "Operation Thunder begins now. Show them what we learned." Across the galaxy, humans moved with deadly precision. On the mining station that Minho Lee had captured, hidden weapon systems suddenly came online. The Kalani had never noticed that their human workers had been modifying the mining lasers and cargo haulers over the past 4 years. What appeared to be industrial equipment was actually a sophisticated defense network. When the Kalani fleet arrived to retake the station, they found themselves facing weapons fire from asteroids they thought were empty. Mining drones had been converted into attack fighters. Cargo haulers had become missile platforms. The entire asteroid field had been turned into a trap. The Kalani lost 12 ships before they even realized what was happening. On Vorthak Prime, Taiwan Park had done something even more unexpected. Instead of fortifying the military academy he had captured, he had abandoned it. But not before his team had systematically sabotaged every piece of military equipment on the planet. When Vorthak reinforcements arrived, they found their weapons wouldn't fire, their vehicles wouldn't start, and their communication systems were broadcasting human propaganda instead of military orders. The humans had turned the entire planet's infrastructure against its owners. But the real shock came when the Vorthak discovered that their own defensive satellites had been reprogrammed. The automated systems that were supposed to protect the planet began targeting Vorthak ships instead. On Pelthani Station 7, So Young Lee had used her access to the research computers to unleash a computer virus that spread through the entire Dominion network. The virus was elegant and devastating. It didn't destroy data, but it changed it in subtle ways. Navigation coordinates shifted by small amounts, causing ships to arrive in the wrong systems. Supply manifests were altered, sending weapons to planets that needed food and food to planets that needed ammunition. Communication protocols were scrambled, making it impossible for Dominion forces to coordinate effectively. Most importantly, the virus gave human forces real-time access to all Dominion military communications. They could see every troop movement, every battle plan, every supply shipment before the aliens themselves could act on the information. The war that the Dominion expected to last days stretched into weeks as their own technology turned against them. But the humans weren't just playing defense. Daeho Kim's fleet struck at the heart of Dominion power with surgical precision. They didn't try to fight large battles against superior numbers. Instead, they eliminated key targets that paralyzed the entire war effort. The Vorthak Fleet Command Center was destroyed by a single human ship that materialized out of nowhere, fired a devastating salvo, and disappeared before defensive systems could respond. The Kalani manufacturing worlds lost their orbital factories to coordinated strikes by human fighters that seemed to phase in and out of existence. The Pelthani government centers found their planetary shields penetrated by human agents who had been hiding among the technical staff for years. The Gondorian trade networks collapsed when human saboteurs revealed that they had been in control of the shipping computers all along. The Mexari Strategic Command discovered that their most trusted alien advisors were actually humans, using advanced disguise technology. Each victory revealed another layer of human preparation. For 4 years, while the Dominion thought they were breaking humanity's spirit, humans had been studying their captors with the intensity of scientists examining laboratory specimens. They had learned to think like each alien species. They understood Vorthak honor codes and used them to predict military responses. They grasped Kalani logical patterns and exploited them to hack computer systems. They comprehended Pelthani's social structures and manipulated them to cause political chaos. But the greatest revelation came when the aliens finally realized the scope of human infiltration. "Sir," reported Intelligence Director Morvan to Supreme Commander Kraveth, "we've completed the security review. The humans have been everywhere." The report was devastating. Humans had held key positions in every major Dominion institution. They had been guards in military bases, servants in government buildings, technicians in research facilities, clerks in administrative centers. More shocking, they had been recruited and trained by other humans who had been captured years earlier. The Dominion had unknowingly created a training program that turned their slaves into perfect infiltrators. "How many?" Kraveth asked. "Conservative estimate?" 50,000 humans in critical positions across the Empire. They've had access to everything. Military plans, government policies, scientific research, economic data. Kraveth stared at the numbers. 50,000 spies, working together for 4 years. "Sir, it's worse than that. Our analysis indicates they've been in communication with each other throughout this time. This wasn't random infiltration. It was a coordinated intelligence operation." The Supreme Commander felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Fear. "What do they want?" he asked. The answer came in the form of another human broadcast. This. Time transmitted directly to every Dominion leader simultaneously. Admiral Daeho Kim appeared on the screens, standing on the bridge of his flagship. Behind him, the tactical display showed the current state of the war. Red dots indicated Dominion forces. Blue dots showed human positions. There were far more blue dots than anyone had expected. "Leaders of the Dominion," Daeho began, "you asked for a war. You're losing it." The tactical display updated to show the results of 3 weeks of fighting. The Dominion had lost over 400 ships. 12 major installations had been captured or destroyed. 3 entire star systems had fallen under human control. Human losses were minimal. But this war was never about conquest, Daeho continued. It was about justice. You have enslaved hundreds of species across thousands of worlds. You have committed genocide on a galactic scale. And you have threatened to do the same to the people of the Andromedan galaxy. The display changed to show shipping records and military deployment orders that the humans had stolen from Dominion computers. Your plans to harvest Andromeda are canceled. Your fleets are recalled. Your slave operations are terminated. The age of the Dominion is over. Kraveth leaned forward in his command chair. What are your terms, human? Simple, Daeho replied. Complete withdrawal of all Dominion forces to your original homeworlds. release of all enslaved species, dismantling of your harvester fleets, reparations to be paid to the worlds you've damaged. And if we refuse, Deho's expression didn't change, then you'll discover what humans are really capable of when we stop holding back. The transmission ended, leaving the Dominion leaders to contemplate their options. They had started this war expecting to crush a primitive rebellion. Instead, they had discovered that they were fighting the most sophisticated enemy in galactic history, an enemy that had been learning from them for 4 years, an enemy that knew them better than they knew themselves, an enemy that had turned their own empire against them. The war wasn't over yet, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. Humanity had bled. Humanity had fought. Now the galaxy would kneel to justice. 1 year after the war ended, Hyejin Park stood in the center of the Galactic Liberation Council chambers, looking out at representatives from over 300 species. As Secretary General, her job was to help these former slaves build a new kind of civilization. It still amazed her how quickly everything had changed. The war had lasted only 6 more weeks after Admiral Deho Kim's ultimatum. The Dominion forces, crippled by sabotage and unable to coordinate effectively, had collapsed system by system. When Supreme Commander Kraveth finally surrendered, his empire controlled less than half of its original territory. The rest belonged to the liberated species. Today's agenda, Hyejin announced to the Council, covers the final integration of the Kalani refugees, the establishment of new trade routes through former Dominion space, and the latest reports from our exploration teams. She looked around, the chamber at faces that represented dozens of different worlds. Some species had been slaves for so long they barely remembered freedom. Others had been conquered just before the human uprising. All of them were learning to work together as equals. It wasn't always easy. Secretary General, called Representative Mortalk of the Trillings, my people are still struggling with the concept of voluntary labor. We need more guidance on how to organize our mining operations without overseers. Hyejin nodded. Representative Kimbo Ra will work with your Economic Council to develop training programs. We've found that former slaves often work more efficiently when they understand that their labor benefits their own communities. On the other side of the chamber, Representative Veshara of the Mordons raised one of her trunk-like arms. What about the Vorthak refugees? They claim they want to integrate into our society, but many of my people don't trust them. This was one of the hardest problems the Council faced. After the war, millions of aliens from the former Dominion races had requested asylum rather than return to their homeworlds. Some were genuine refugees who had opposed their governments. Others might be spies or saboteurs. The integration committees are making progress, Hyejin replied. We're using the same psychological evaluation methods that humans developed during our infiltration operations. Anyone who demonstrates genuine commitment to peaceful coexistence is welcome. She didn't mention that the evaluation methods were also designed to identify potential threats. Humans had learned to be trusting, but not naive. As the session continued, Hyejin reflected on how much the galaxy had changed. The massive slave colonies had been transformed into free settlements. The oppressive mining operations had become cooperative enterprises. The fearsome military bases had been converted into defense stations, that protected trade routes instead of enforcing conquest. But the biggest change was in the people themselves. Species that had been enemies for centuries were learning to work together. The Kalani, with their logical minds, made excellent engineers and administrators. The Trillings, with their patient nature, became skilled mediators and teachers. The Mordans, with their strength and wisdom, served as protectors and advisors. Even some of the former Dominion species had found new roles. Vorthak, who had served in the military, became instructors in the new Galactic Defense Force, teaching other species how to protect themselves from future threats. Pelthani scientists shared their knowledge freely, instead of hoarding it for military advantage. After the council session ended, Hye-Jin walked to her office in the former Dominion Capitol building. The structure had been redesigned to reflect its new purpose. Instead of a throne room where 5 species ruled over hundreds, it now contained meeting chambers where all species participated as equals. Her assistant, a young Trilling named Kessely, was waiting with the day's reports. "Admiral Kim sends his regards from the Outer Rim Patrol," Kessely reported. "No signs of hostile activity, but they've made contact with 3 new species that want to join the Liberation Council." Hye-Jin smiled. That was happening more often these days. As word spread about the new galactic government, species that had been hiding from the Dominion were coming forward to make contact. "What about the exploration reports?" Team 7 has confirmed that the Andromedan galaxy is free of Dominion influence. The local species there never knew how close they came to invasion. Team 12 has established communication with what appears to be a peaceful alliance in the Triangulum galaxy. Hye-Jin nodded and made notes for the next council meeting. The galaxy was becoming a much larger and more interesting place now that exploration was driven by curiosity instead of conquest. But the most important report came from an unexpected source. "Secretary General," Kessely said quietly, "there's a message from Earth." Hye-Jin looked up in surprise. Earth had been silent since the liberation. The planet was still recovering from the Dominion attack, and most humans had assumed it would take decades to rebuild. "What do they say?" "They're ready to rejoin the galactic community. They've rebuilt their orbital defenses and established a new government. They want to send representatives to the council." Hye-Jin felt tears in her eyes. After 5 years of exile, humanity's home world was finally ready to take its place among the stars again. That evening, she met with the other human leaders for their weekly dinner. It had become a tradition. No matter how busy they were with their new responsibilities, the core group always found time to share a meal and remember where they came from. Admiral Dae-Ho Kim had returned from patrol duty looking tired but satisfied. As commander of the Liberation Fleet, he was responsible for protecting the new galactic order from any remaining threats. "The Vorthak homeworld is requesting permission to rejoin the galactic community," he reported. "Their new government has agreed to all our conditions. No military expansion, no slavery, full cooperation with war crimes tribunals." Min-Ho Lee, now Director of Economic Development, had spent the day working with former mining colonies. The productivity reports keep getting better. When people work for themselves instead of masters, they accomplish amazing things. Su-Jin, Cho, who had become head of the new Galactic Intelligence Service, shared her latest findings. We've confirmed that the Dominion destroyed evidence of at least 50 species that they drove to complete extinction. We're building memorials to make sure they're not forgotten. But the most interesting report came from Jae-min Yang, who had been appointed Director of Galactic Communications. I've been analyzing the message patterns from the outer galaxies, he said. There are signs of at least 12 other galactic civilizations out there. Some appear peaceful, but others show expansion patterns similar to the old Dominion. The group fell quiet. They had liberated their own galaxy, but the universe was vast and full of unknowns. What do you think we should do? Hyejin asked. Dae-ho spoke first. We protect what we've built. The Liberation Fleet is already the most powerful military force in known space. Any threat that comes this way will find us ready. But we also reach out, Minho added. We share what we've learned about cooperation and freedom. Maybe we can convince other civilizations to choose a better path. Sujin nodded. Knowledge is our greatest weapon. The more we understand about potential threats, the better we can prepare for them. Jae-min smiled. And we keep talking. Communication prevented this galaxy from falling back into war after the liberation. It can work with other galaxies, too. Hyejin looked around at her friends and colleagues. 5 years ago, they had been broken survivors of a conquered world. Now they were leaders of a free galaxy, preparing to face whatever challenges the universe might bring. You know what I think? She said. I think we've learned something that no other galactic civilization has figured out yet. What's that? Dae-ho asked. That strength should protect, not dominate. That knowledge should be shared, not hoarded. That freedom means something only when everyone has it. She raised her glass in a toast. The galaxy kneels not to our power, but to our principles. And that makes all the difference. As they drank, each of them reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. They had bled for survival, fought for freedom, and won something more precious than victory. They had earned the right to protect what they loved. Outside the windows of their meeting room, the lights of 1,000 worlds twinkled in the darkness. Each light represented millions of beings who lived in freedom because humans had refused to accept slavery. The Dominion was gone. The age of galactic empires built on conquest and oppression had ended, but the universe was vast and full of wonders, yet to be discovered, and humanity would be ready for whatever came next. After all, they had learned that when humans worked together with others who shared their values, there was no challenge too great to overcome. The meeting ended with plans for the future. Earth would send its first ambassadors to the Liberation Council within the month. New exploration missions would be launched to make contact with distant civilizations. The memorial projects for extinct species would be completed. Most importantly, they would continue building something the galaxy had never seen before. A civilization based on cooperation instead of conquest. As the leaders departed for their homes on different worlds, Hyejin remained behind to finish some paperwork, but her mind wasn't on